So hi there guys, today I'm going to show you how to make these green tea matcha cookies. Since January is National Tea Month, green tea cookie would be great to pair with tea. You can do this with any tea, but green tea is my favorite and I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is actually take 2 matcha green tea bags, and as you see there I got those 2. And we're going to put in 1/4 of a cup, 1/4 of a cup of not yet boiling water, but you want it pretty hot, like too hot to drink. And so you put those 2 in, and you're going to add that 1/4 of a cup of boiling water. And the reason you do 2 tea bags is because this is going to be your green tea concentrate. And this is what you're going to use to get that more earthy green tea taste to your cookies. So as you see, I poured in about 1/4 of a cup, and my water was pretty steaming coming out. And so that's what you're going to do. And as you see, I show it to the camera. And then what you do is you take a separate spoon. I like to do this. You really don't have to. But I like to stir it and kind of like squish the bags in to make sure I get like all of that tea goodness out. And then you set that to the side, and you're going to let that cool almost to room temperature. So once you finish with that, you're going to grab either a mixing bowl. If you have a hand stand or a mixing bowl, mixing stand, this will make it so much easier. I had to do this by hand, but I used 2 sticks of salted butter. You can use unsalted butter, but for me, I feel like salted butter just works better, and that's what I had at the kitchen at the time, so that's what I used. And you're going to put that in, and honestly, as a note, looking back on this, I wish I would have used a hand mixer or a hand stand because I struggled trying to turn this butter and, chop up and mix up the cookie dough. And then after that, you're going to add in 2 tablespoons of like regular granulated sugar. And so that's, as you can see, I'm adding that in. That's going to give you like, your sweet shortbread cookie taste, because you still want your green tea cookie to taste like a cookie. And then following that, we're going to add 1/2 a cup of powdered sugar. And the reason being is because the powdered sugar gives the cookie and the green tea a more sweeter taste, because green tea, I will not lie, is kind of bitter, kind of earthy, and not everybody likes that, especially if you have like young kids at home that like sweet cookies. Next, I'm going to add 1/2 a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So I just eyeballed it in. The vanilla extract I use is actually one that I home make. I made it, that's 4 years old that I made it ago. But you can buy any store-bought vanilla extract and work as well. And so you want to start mixing it, and when I tell you, like, this is where I struggle. I think I was mixing for about 20 minutes just because it would have been easier with a hand mixer. So if you have a hand mixer or you have, a mixing stand, definitely use that. It'll make it go by so much faster. It'll make your life so much easier. And so while I was mixing, I was trying to get like, the butter chopped up enough, easy enough. And as I was stirring it, I kept my kitchen, like the AC on, just because I didn't want to overwork the butter. And that's the thing, this butter will start to melt and stick. So if you can in any way keep it on like a cooler surface or like a cooler room temperature, do so. But who doesn't like a little bit of cookie dough everywhere? Okay, and so as you see, after like stirring for like about 20 minutes, I started to get that cookie dough consistency. And during this point, you want to add in 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And the way I was taught, you never add in both cups at the same time. So I did 1 cup, stirred it in. That's the first cup I'm pouring in. Then you add in the second cup, pour it in, and it's going to help the cookie like bond together but yet not stick to the bowl, and it won't like have the butter melting all over the place. And when I tell you, I think I actually had a workout stirring these cookies, because I didn't have a hand mixer, and my stand mixer I couldn't find it at the time. It's somewhere in the attic. And so, yeah, if you want an arm workout, good arm workout, stir it with your hands. And so, as you can see, it got into that dough mixture. So at this point, the matcha tea concentrate has cooled completely. So what I did was I basically just took the spoon, squeezed all the matcha juice that I could out from the tea bags, and poured it into the cookie dough. So this is going to gives it a slight green texture, but it also gives it that earthy green tea leaf matcha taste as well. And so I did a little bit at a time, made sure it fell in, and then came back, and then I just mixed it up and then poured more in. So that's what that 1/4 cup is. You don't need a lot of the matcha tea concentrate because it does give it that matcha tea taste. It's the brand I used it's a very strong concentrate with 1 tea bag. So with the 2 tea bags, and as you see, that green color is a very good indication of how much of the matcha tea you're going to be able to taste. So at this point, after like all the stirring, I did start to notice that the dough was starting to become overworked. So I did let it rest for a bit, and I actually took it out and placed it on some saran wrap, because at this point what I was going to do was actually add in matcha tea powder. Now matcha tea powder is a little bit sweeter, so it does give it that sugary sweeter taste versus the matcha tea bags, and that's the brand that I had used. I usually use a brand from Rishi that I'll order online, but this is what I had on hand, which is a Walmart brand. You can find it at any Walmart, Target, Trader Joe's, any shop that sells groceries. So I put in a 1/2 teaspoon of matcha and basically mixed it in, put it back in the bowl, mixed it in, and let it work. It gave that matcha powder is what actually gives the cookies that really green color. It's more of a pistachio color. Matcha does come in different shades of green. The greener it is, the more earthier and more leafier it tastes. So that's what that did. So as you see, previously it was like, that nice brown cookie color, and now it's like a pistachio green, and that's because of the matcha powder, and it does give it an extra sweet taste, more of a taste that you taste in matcha ice cream. Okay, and so here you see me putting it into a separate container because what I'm going to do at this point is the dough became overworked, so it was really sticky. And so what you do is you want to put it in an airtight container or wrap it really, really good in saran wrap and put it in the fridge for 1 hour. And you want to do this because you want to let it rest. Okay, so I took it out after an hour. I dusted my work surface, and I could really, like, as I was handling the dough, I could smell the vanilla, I could smell the matcha, and it was just a lovely smell. The only thing is, at this point, I did turn my oven on, so my kitchen did get hot, and the dough was sticking, so I literally was like a flour maniac. I think I used like half a bag of flour because honestly, I am horrible when it comes to when you're supposed to flour and dust your surfaces to use the dough. And so what I did was I was trying to keep it from sticking from my hands, keep it from sticking to the countertop. So I just literally dumped almost a whole bag of flour onto the surface. Okay, and so at this point, I've kind of rolled it out into like a disc shape, kind of like flattened it, and I took my blue rolling pin, and it's by T Bloom, and basically dusted that or tried to dust it with flour and rolled out the cookie dough. So you don't want to roll it out too thin because it will overcook when you put it in the oven, but you also don't want it too thick unless you're like a person. I don't like the middle of my cookies to be soft. I'm more like a hard, crunchy cookie or like a firmer cookie, but you can roll it out to a thicker cookie and it'll be nice and crispy on the outside with nice firm edges but nice gooey on the inside, and you don't want that. So you want to cut off the edges, and basically at this point I used the pizza cutter because I didn't have a cookie cutter. And the shape I was going for, there was no specific cookie cutter for that, but you want to cut out the edges, and then you want to cookie cut, or with the pizza cutter rather, you want to cut them into squares. And so that's what I did, and then as you see with my scraps, I just put in the fridge and let that cool. But yeah, you want to cut them into squares because we're going to make them almost tea bag shape. And you know, tea bags are usually square. Well, really they're trapezoid shape. And so that's what I did. So you cut them into squares, and then I separated the pieces, and I cut the tips of the squares off. So, you know, it went from a square, a rectangle, to a trapezoid. And I'm going to show you how I do it. And then, so right there, as you can see, it's like a trapezoid shape. And then I just take a toothpick and stick a hole all the way through the middle, because, you know, the tea bags has a little hole where you put the little string through. So, yeah, and then you sit it on the cookie sheet so it can wait for the others to bake. So I took another piece out, and as you see, cut the little tips off to make it kind of like a trapezoid shape. And then take a toothpick, and you want to stick the toothpick all the way through. It's kind of like, you know, an ear piercing. You want to stick it all the way through. Otherwise, when you're baking it, the cookie hole will close up. So you want to stick it all the way through, and you want to make it kind of wide enough. If you're using kitchen twine for the string part, you want to make it wide enough for the string to fit. And so I did that a couple more times with the other with the other cookie pieces. And then, eventually I went back to the scraps that I had, rolled that out, rolled that together, and then, redid that as well. And so, yeah, that's the third one. Okay, and so at this point, you'll see I have also some round-shaped cookie cutouts, and I poked a hole in those because there are tea bags. I can't remember what brand, but there are tea bags where they are round and they have the little string in them. So I was like, hey, why not try those as well? So those were the round ones, and you can use that if you have like any kind of lid, or if you even have the stereotypical regular round-shaped cookie cutter. And I just poked holes all the way through, so then that way when I put the string through, it would go through without a problem, and I wouldn't have to break the cookie in order to try and get the string through. And so what I did do while I finished up those last few cookies, I preheated my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So when it was time to put in the cookies, you only want to put them in there for about 10 to 15 minutes, or until the edges are golden brown. And as you can see, this is how the cookies came out. The edges were golden brown. The thinner ones did crumble, but you can dip those in your tea. And then, the thicker ones were more softer on the inside, but it still kept that green kind of pistachio color, which they're really good, and I like to dip them in my tea, especially when it's hot. And yeah, those are the green tea cookies, and I hope you had fun.